Previously in part 1, Elise, a single mother, shares a deeply emotional and unexpected moment with her 22-year-old son, Lenny, after he seeks comfort on a cold night. As they lie close, the unspoken tension between them grows, leaving Elise conflicted and unsure of how to handle the strange connection. The arrival of their neighbor Mark adds another layer of complexity, sparking jealousy and deepening the emotional turmoil. Now, this story continues from where they left off with both of them walking to their rooms. Elise looked at the clock, the hands ticking away the last moments of a quiet evening. It had been a long week, and she felt the weight of it in her bones. She glanced over at her son, Lenny, who sat slumped on the couch, his eyes glazed over with the exhaustion of a young man who had been juggling too much. With a gentle sigh, she decided it was time to talk. She approached him and placed a hand on his shoulder, feeling the tension knotting the muscles beneath. "Lenny, you look tired," she said softly. "Want to talk about what happened in the past 2 days?" He nodded wearily, and together they moved to her bedroom. Elise pulled back the covers and urged him to rest while she sat in the chair beside the bed, watching him closely. She couldn't shake the feeling that there was something he wasn't telling her. Something that was weighing him down. As he lay there, she studied his features. The lines of his face that she knew so well, the way his eyelashes fluttered as he fought to keep his eyes open. It was in this moment that she realized how much he had grown, how much he had changed. And yet, he was still her little boy, her baby, the one she had raised alone. The silence grew heavier, and she felt the need to fill it. "What's been going on, Lenny?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "You can tell me anything." Lenny took a deep, shuddering breath before speaking. "It's just... I don't know, Mom. Everything's just... complicated. I want us to be more than what we are, but... You're my mother." Elise felt her heart clench. She knew all too well the feeling of life spinning out of control. She had felt it herself so many times over the years. "I'm here for you," she assured him, her hand reaching out to cover his. "We'll figure it out together." He turned to face her, and she saw the depth of his pain reflected in his eyes. For a moment, she was lost in them, feeling a rush of emotions she hadn't anticipated. The love she had for him was so intense it was almost physical. Lenny's hand reached up and took hers, holding it tightly. "I know, Mom," he said, his voice cracking. "I feel things when I'm around you." The question hung in the air between them, a stark reminder of the chasm that had opened up over the years. Elise felt a tear slip down her cheek as she leaned in to kiss his forehead. "You're still my son," she whispered, "and I'll always love you, no matter what." The room grew quiet again. The only sound, the faint ticking of the clock and the soft rhythm of their breathing. As she watched him drift into sleep, she made a silent promise to herself to do whatever it took to help him find his way back. The warmth of his hand in hers brought comfort, but it was also a stark reminder of the complexities of their bond. Last time involved Elise seeing something she shouldn't have. He hid something under the sheets, and she realized immediately. They had always been close, but now it felt as if something was shifting, something she couldn't quite put her finger on. The night stretched on, filled with the quietude of unspoken truths and the warmth of a mother's love. And as the house grew still around them, Elise knew that tomorrow would bring new challenges, new conversations, and maybe, just maybe, a new understanding of what it meant to be a mother. But for now, she held on to the moment, watching the rise and fall of his chest, feeling the steady beat of his heart through the palm of her hand. It was a reminder that no matter what the future held, she was here for him, as she had always been. Through all the physical intimacy, their bond stood strong. As the minutes ticked by, she couldn't help but think about her own life, the choices she had made, the paths she had taken. She had always tried to be strong for Lenny, to give him a life filled with love and stability, But in doing so, had she missed the signs? Had she been too focused on being the rock that she forgot to listen? Her thoughts grew heavy with the weight of the years, and she found herself leaning in, her hand still in his, her cheek resting against his forehead. His breathing remained steady, and she hoped that he could find peace in the warmth of their embrace. Both of them hugged each other lividly, a hug that lingered longer than usual. Both of them did not want to let go. Elise closed her eyes and prayed for guidance, for the wisdom to navigate the uncharted waters of their newfound closeness. The line between mother and son had blurred, and she knew that crossing it would be a delicate dance, fraught with peril and promise. But she was willing to take the risk. For the love of her son, she would face whatever lay ahead with open eyes. And as the first light of dawn began to creep into the room, she felt a shift in the air, a gentle tug at her soul that told her everything was going to be okay, that no matter what, they would find their way through this together. So she held on tight, her eyes still closed, her breaths matching his, and she whispered a soft promise to the universe, a declaration of her unyielding love for the young man who had grown from the tiny, fragile creature she had once cradled in her arms. They would face the world side by side, mother and son, each discovering who they were, together and apart. And as the sun rose, casting its golden glow upon them, she knew that this was just the beginning of a new chapter in their story, a chapter filled with love and the promise of understanding. The next morning, Elise awoke to find Lenny's hand still in hers, his grip unchanged from the night before. She sat up slowly, not wanting to disturb him, and took in the sight of her son, the young man he had become. He was still so vulnerable, so lost, and it was her job to guide him through the storm. They had a quiet breakfast, the tension between them palpable but unspoken. Elise knew that words could not fix everything, but she hoped that her presence, her love, would be enough to start the healing process. They talked about the mundane, the weather, his job, but she could see the shadows in his eyes, the weight of his unspoken thoughts. After breakfast, she suggested they go for a walk, something they hadn't done in years. Lenny agreed, and they stepped out into the crisp autumn air, the leaves crunching beneath their feet as they ambled through the park. They talked more about life, about love, about the future. And it was there, amidst the beauty of the changing seasons, that Elise felt the beginnings of a shift in their relationship, a gentle unfurling of the tightly wound coil of fear and doubt that had been suffocating them. The conversation flowed easily, and she found herself opening up to him in ways she never had before. They shared stories from their past, secrets that had been buried for too long, and dreams that had been put aside in the name of survival. And with each step they took, she felt the bond between them strengthening, the love that had always been there growing into something new, something profound. As they strolled hand in hand, the silence grew more comfortable, and the weight of the night before began to lift. They found themselves laughing together, the sound echoing through the trees like a melody they had long forgotten. And in that moment, as the sun climbed higher in the sky, Elise knew that they had turned a corner. The path ahead was still uncertain, but together they would face it, for she was his mother, and he was her son, and that love was unshakable. As they continued their walk, the chilly breeze carrying the scent of pine and the distant sound of children playing, Elise felt a newfound lightness in her step. She looked over at Lenny, his eyes bright with the promise of a new day, and she knew that they had taken the first step toward healing. They talked about his fears, his hopes, his dreams, and she listened with all her heart, nodding in understanding, offering words of encouragement when she could. And as they did, she saw the lines of tension slowly easing from his face, the burden of his secrets lifted just a little. By the time they returned home, the sun was high in the sky and the house felt somehow different, lighter. They sat on the porch, sipping coffee, watching the world go by. It was a simple moment, but it was filled with a profound sense of peace that neither of them had felt in a long time. Lenny looked at her, his eyes clear and steady. "Mom," he said. "Thank you." Elise reached over and took his hand, giving it a gentle squeeze. "For what?" "For everything," he replied, his voice thick with emotion. "For never giving up on me." A tear slipped down her cheek, and she leaned her head against his shoulder. They sat there, together in the warmth of the sun, basking in the glow of their love and the knowledge that they could overcome anything. The rest of the day passed in a blur of activity, as if the universe itself knew that they needed to keep moving forward. They tackled the pile of laundry, cooked a meal together, and even watched a movie, something they hadn't done in ages. And through it all, the unspoken understanding remained, a quiet force that bound them together. As the evening drew in, Elise felt a sense of accomplishment, of growth. They had faced the storm and they had emerged stronger. The night would come, and with it, more challenges, more questions. But for now, they had each other. And as they sat in the living room, the light from the setting sun casting a warm glow on the walls, she knew that they would continue to face whatever life threw their way, as they always had, as a mother and son, as two people who had found their way back to each other in the most unexpected way. The story of Elise and Lenny is one of love, growth, and understanding. It's a tale that shows us that no matter how complex the tapestry of our lives may become, the threads of family and love can always be woven back together. And as they sat there, hand in hand, they were ready to tackle everything coming their way. If you like this story, continue to support us by subscribing and watching other videos.